We had a terrorist out of Canada. The Trudeau government brought him in as part of a very large, historic, significant legal migration project to bring in 500,000 a year. He's brought in almost 2 million people from around the world, focusing a lot on Middle Eastern countries. So they bring in a guy from Afghanistan there, and he immediately begins plotting to cross the northern border from Canada into the United States to go into New York and slaughter Jews praying for the high holiday services. They caught him in a sting on the Canadian side. He paid for a smuggler to sneak him in over the northern border, which we never really think about as
Right.
much. They caught him 12 clicks away from crossing and rolled him up along with a couple of co-conspirators. It was a fully baked plot. The intent was to block the exits of the synagogue so that they could slaughter everybody inside. Nobody would be able to get out. So the northern border, we shouldn't forget, Justin Trudeau's liberal government made us less safe by bringing in all of these legally. They had to bring them in legally. And I think that a lot of terrorists and a lot of bad actors are using the Canadian program as a lily pad to then cross south into our country. And lots of them are crossing south into our country, including guys like that. The prospect of Trump is already reportedly creating the opposite suction effect back into Canada. A lot of these people are now crossing back north or going to be crossing north into Canada from here, and good riddance to them.
Some of them might be from Hollywood too.
Yeah, that's true. I hear all these people saying, oh, Trump victory, I'm leaving the country, I'm going to Canada. And my first thought is like, why? Because they're mostly white up there? What's wrong with Mexico?
It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
And like I say, you don't find any better food anywhere in the world. Now, I want to hear about what you told me you saw in Tapachula when you were just there a couple weeks ago, right before the election. The people that were staying in the hotel where you were, because you weren't staying in a dive hotel. What'd you find there?
First of all, in my defense, I usually stay at a regular hotel, but they were all filled up. There was no hotel space. So you have to pay more to find any hotel space at all. My hotel was filled with Armenians, man. I've never met so many Armenians. Every morning at breakfast, there they all were. I was in line with the Armenians. I tried to talk to
So were these mostly military age males, or were there women with them, or what?
They were families. And they,
Families.
yeah, and they seemed very well heeled. These
Well,
people,
yeah.
yeah, you could tell that this was Armenia's elite, maybe middle class. They were well resourced. The kids were well behaved. You could tell that dad was probably a professional of some sort back home, and mom was probably a homemaker, and they probably lived a pretty nice lifestyle. And then also a lot of Vietnamese. I haven't met Vietnamese before that last trip in Tapachula. I remember driving down the street of Tapachula and just seeing 50 of them in one big long row walking together down the road, very well equipped, the best kind of backpacks, new equipment, everything, good boots, good clothing. They were prepared. They had guides. People were accompanying them. Nobody was just wandering around aimlessly on their own. I can tell you that. They all had professional guides that were taking them at my hotel every morning. I'm getting breakfast and going about my way for the day. They were getting into taxi cabs and air conditioned minibuses, and they've got their guides, and this whole thing is really well oiled. I think those are the people that are still crossing our border, 50,000 a month, even though there's Operation Carousel down there. Those are the ones that are crossing, the ones that have money.
Do they have money to bribe their way through the checkpoints?
Absolutely, that's what's happening. Their guides, the guys that are taking care of all the details, undoubtedly have made arrangements with the soldiers or the captains that run the roadblocks.
So I'm trying to figure out the Armenian route. I know there are a lot of Armenians that come to the United States illegally across the southern border. There are tons of Armenians in the United States already, and they're just coming for better paycheck. There's no reason at all to leave Armenia at this point. We take people to Armenia. As a matter of fact, we have a tour going to Armenia in June of this coming year. Todd, you really ought to come along and come see
I
Armenia.
want to, yes.
Yeah, you really should do it. We've got, I think, maybe 4 or 5 slots left on that tour. If you're interested in coming to Armenia with us, we're trying to finish up that tour, and then we'll open up another tour if we have enough demand. It's in June of 2025. We can send you all the information if you're interested in taking an adventure with Chuck and Connie Holton. This is your chance, and believe me, you will not regret going to see Armenia. It is one of the greatest countries I've ever been to, and I've been to most of them, and I highly recommend you come. But people that leave Armenia to come to the United States and don't want to again get a visa like my daughter-in-law did, but just come illegally.
I couldn't really talk to them. I tried a number of times, and they're coached. These guys are not talking to reporter types, and neither were the Vietnamese. The Chinese will very rarely ever talk to you as well. I don't know what their visa situation is, but I suspect you're right. They could at least fly into Guatemala on a tourist visa. They're probably all going to claim asylum. That maybe there's some pocket of conflict over there.
They can say that. There are Armenians that have been driven out of their homes in the Nagorno-Karabakh district, which is not actually in Armenia proper. It's surrounded by Azerbaijan. Right. They were driven into Armenia, but there are social welfare programs for them in Armenia. They get paid to get a house and food in Armenia, and it's not easy for them if they're from Artsakh. It's certainly no reason for them to come to the United States. If they did need to leave, they crossed through a dozen countries already where they could have easily made a life. So they don't have to come to the U.S.
That's right.
And so by the time they get to the U.S., they are economic migrants, point, period, end of story. Now, the ones that my daughter-in-law has told me about that she knows, who she follows friends of hers from school on Facebook or whatever. One day they just pop up and they're in California all of a sudden. Many of them went to the United States in order to have babies there because they want their baby to have American citizenship. So it's my anchor baby. I'm half tempted to fly to Tapachula just to find the Armenians because I really want to know more about that topic just because Armenia is so near and dear to my heart. And I can tell them all about my son who left the United States to go to Armenia because he thought it was better in Armenia.
I recently got a Freedom of Information Act request return for a breakdown of all the different countries and the numbers. Armenia was one of the highest. I mean, there were like 11 or 12,000 Armenians that have already crossed in and came over the border. A lot of Armenians have already crossed the border.
I know there have been a bunch, but it's interesting to me that even Armenians and a lot of Russians also have come to the United States. Last time I was in Tijuana, there's entire hotels just feet from the fence that are full of Russians.
On this last trip, I met some Iranians who actually spoke English, and I'm still in contact with one of the Iranians.
And he's in the U.S. now?
He can't get past the Operation Carousel. He says he doesn't have the money for the smugglers. Everybody down there knows that if you have a certain amount of money, you can buy your way to the U.S. border. That's what's happening. The ones that are coming are the wealthiest of the wealthy immigrants. That's why they're from all over the world. They're extra continentals from all over Africa and everything, but they're the moneyed class. I know you've met Venezuelans. When I was in Colombia, it was funny because I was meeting all of these Venezuelan families. And the women were like painted fingernails. And it was just like, what are you doing out here? What are you doing going through the Darien Gap? They hired somebody to carry their gear and take care of their camping needs and stuff like that. It's like, really?
It's amazing that it has become such an industry and so many people are making money off of this industry that now it's about to just crash. This whole industry is about to crash. And you were even joking about like, I've been writing on this for years now. What am I going to do?
I haven't declared the mass migration border crisis over, but it's getting close. If they don't rush the border, during the transition period and Trump actually gets in there, I think it's going to be dead all the way down trail, like COVID era dead, all the way down through the Darien Gap. That's what I'm thinking. And I guess if you're in the immigration, mass migration business, you're going to be out of business. A mutual friend of ours who's down there, he was in Rio, he's somewhere down in Brazil. And he said that the United Nations, which you, me, some of us have been reporting about, their talk about getting obese on profit, those UN agencies and the NGOs. He said he went in posing as an American trying to get a job with the UN, and they said, we have a massive hiring freeze effective 2 days ago. No more money is being spent. Everybody's going to get laid off. It's over. The whole party is over.
Well, that's awesome.
For that.
That's the best news that I've heard all day.
When I was in Tapachula, if you look at my Twitter feed, and I wrote a big story about this before the election, they're building this massive 75,000 square foot facility, one-stop shop, NGO. Everybody goes in there and they've got a big room,
NGO.
super mall. They got a room out there for a tent city. And I think that they were just gambling that Kamala Harris was going to win. Now I bet you that thing's they're not even going to finish construction on it.
Turn it into a goat pen or something. It's going to be interesting for sure. And you can always go report on the riots and protests and stuff that are going to happen for the next 4 years here in the United States. And I may see you there. Yeah. Folks, this is Todd Bensman. He's a senior fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies and has a couple of good books out on the immigration crisis that I recommend you read. If you would like to follow Todd, I recommend that you follow his YouTube channel, and Bensman Online here on YouTube. Recommend you follow his YouTube. He is constantly testifying before Congress and on Fox News and Bannon's War Room and lots of other places. You should definitely follow Todd wherever you can. He is the first source reporter where a lot of other reporters get their reporting. Please make sure you like and share the podcast on our channel, whether share it and get the word out. We've got a lot more coming and a lot of really good things that are going to be coming in the new year. Please go to chuckholton.com. That'll take you to Locals. If it asks you to sign up on Rumble, that's because Rumble and Locals are the same company. So don't worry about that. You can sign up on the Locals page, which is chuckholton.locals.com. You can get a lot of extra content that I am not allowed to show you on YouTube. You can get copies of my new book, Death of Civilization, just came out a few weeks ago. You can get it as a supporter for free, just a download, or you can go to Amazon.com and buy a Dead Tree version of it if you want one of those. I'm going to be giving out some signed copies.
I should mention that I have a newsletter. It's free. If you want to just keep track of my regular publication, when I write for the New York Post and the Daily Mail and American Mind and a bunch of different publications. And if you go to toddbensman.com, you can sign up for that newsletter right there too, and unsubscribe if it gets to be too much. I've been very prolific lately.
You have signed up to your newsletter, and I'm almost every day getting texts and emails that you've got another article out, and for good reason. You're putting out really good stuff and you do your homework. So that's why I like having you on the show. Thank you for taking your time to come on, and I hope we'll have you on again before you really make it big and are too busy for us. Everybody, thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate all of you. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.